Hey everybody, I think we are live and I'm going to try and pop out the chat so that I can make sure that I see what you guys are saying. All right. Here we go. All right, while everybody is coming in, we are going to start some sketching of the garden. Whoop. Okay, let's see. I can't actually draw this the way that it is in real life because I would not be able to fit it all onto one page. But we're trying to be pretty accurate. Hello, hello. If you guys are here, say hi in the chat. I'd like to chat with you guys. Hey, John. What are you up to today? Miguel, hello. So good to see you. Also, if my audio is good, let me know that. The microphone is much closer to my face than it normally would be. Lurking. Yeah, that's okay. Thanks for letting me know that you're here, Sean. Sounds good. Thanks for letting me know. It's always so hard to test these things ahead of time. Right now, I am just doing a quick sketch of my garden while I give people time to kind of come in and say hello. I don't know if you guys can see on camera, I am tracing another drawing that I did of my garden earlier that we're going to get to see. Hello. Yeah, Ms. Sharon, Oxheart. I should be the only one. It's an intentional misspelling of Oxheart, like Oxheart. And that just came from Animal Farm. Not Animal Farm. What was it? The little video game that came out in 2020. Where you have all your little friends and you build houses in a little city. Gosh, Why is the name of that escaping me right now? But I needed a name for my town, and my boyfriend asked me, "What's your favorite thing?" Animal Crossing. That's what it is, not Animal Farm. Yeah, my boyfriend asked me, "Well, what's your favorite thing to grow in the garden?" And I was like, "Well, right now it's Oxheart carrots." And so we're like, "Okay, we will make that the name of our town, but we want to make it a fun spelling." And actually, the logo that you see is a like a professional rendition of the flag that he originally designed for our little Animal Crossing town. So I think that that's really cute. Have any of you guys started planning your gardens yet? Let's see, I think, yeah, there's one more big section here I gotta draw out. The berry patch. When you look at it all on a page together like this, I think I have so much more garden space than I thought I did. There's a lot to plan out. Seeds in the garage in Dallas, Texas area. Yeah, so did y'all get snow in Dallas? I think people talking about Austin getting snow, and I know that like some of the more coastal stuff got more snow than like some of the more mid stuff. Because here we got snow technically, but then it like disappeared overnight. Like it just sublimated. I don't know. Definitely didn't get warm enough for it to melt. But I heard like Miguel, you and Molly down in Charleston got like a ton of snow. John been buying seeds, mapping out new beds. Yeah, that's a good place to be this time of year. John, remind me where you're at. Sometimes I struggle to keep track of where all of you guys are. All right. Let's make sure I got it all. Yeah, that looks about right. Cass County, Indiana. Nice. So it'll still be a while before you are actually starting seeds. Okay, it is 3:10, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get started with the meat of everything. So I want to start with what I did last year and the previous years for gardening planning. So I've been using a big 5 subject notebook to do like general drawing out and planning of garden stuff. You know, I've got all sorts of diagrams in here. And this is just like, I just flip to the next newest page and do stuff in there. It's not very structured at all. And then I've also had this 5-year planner that I've been using. And this has been pretty good for the most part. Like, I do really like that I can say, okay, June of 2023, what did I do versus June of 2024, what did I do? Having that comparison, I think, has been really nice for me, and I'll be able to go June 2025. And I don't think I'm fully going to get rid of doing things this way, but what I realized was that I have been kind of flying by the seat of my pants when it comes to gardening. You guys all know that, especially you've been here for a while. And it's time to be just like a little bit more intentional about things. So what I started doing was designing this garden planner / journal that I felt like would start meeting all of my needs. And it's got these like 3 major sections. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put this page back where it goes now that I am done tracing it. But I've put this into like 3 major sections, and I put it all together, and I started making this because I couldn't find anything that was like this online. So I was like, oh, I'll make it myself. It has like the planning portion where you're gonna like decide what you're gonna plant and go through that process of what do I want to plant and what is the climate that I'm looking at, etc., etc. How much space do I have, and then like what do I actually want to be planting, and go through all of that. Go through, okay, there are a few new things that maybe I want to try this year. Is that actually going to work in my space, in my climate? And then I made a calendar for myself that is essentially, it's got everything that this other one didn't. Like the other one, having 5 years at a time I think is really nice, but I've been missing more space to like write about what has gone on in the month, and so I wanted to be sure to add that in. And then I also wanted a journal section that would allow me to kind of reflect on things as they're coming through in the garden season. And I think doing that at the time that it's happening instead of waiting is going to be really crucial for me, because y'all know that I will forget stuff. I'll be like, oh yeah, I should definitely do this next year. And then you guys never hear about it ever again, because it just like leaves my brain. And so I wanted to make sure to integrate the like reflection part of running a garden into my more structured planning of the garden and keeping track of the garden. And I was actually like pretty proud with how all of this turned out. And so it is actually going to be officially the first thing that I'm going to offer to you guys that I've created that you can buy on my actually brand new website that I've designed. The link it should be in the description of the live if you want to check out the website and everything. But right now this is being offered as a PDF for you guys to download, print out, or, fill out like on your computer if you want. And I think one of the good things about having it as a PDF is that if you screw up a page, you just print out a new one. And if you and a friend really want to do this together, then you just buy it once and print out like copies for all your friends. I don't really care if that's what you want to do with it. But because I felt like this was such a helpful thing for me, I wanted to make sure that it was available to you guys as well. So I kind of want to go through some of what I've already done in here, and then we're going to go through one of these sections together as well. So I start out with this section on how to decide what to plant, and I think this is important like for new gardeners, but also people who've been doing this a while and maybe haven't taken the time to reflect in a while about like, why are you gardening? What is your driving force, And for me, my big goal is to grow as much of my own food as possible. And then a secondary goal I have with that is to do it with as little work as possible. Y'all know I'm trying to be a lazy gardener over here. And so hand in hand with that is working with the environment instead of against it, because I think the more that you work with nature, the less like work you have to do, because you're kind of using nature's forces to do that work for you. And then from there, I wanted to go even like a layer deeper. Like, okay, I want to grow food, but why do I want to grow food? Like, what's driving me on that? And I think like digging deeper into that why gets you really solid on your motivation and can help you make better decisions as you're moving forward with actually deciding what it is you're going to plant. So, for me, I want to grow food because I want to be less reliant on global food systems that can be quite delicate. I mean, I know we all saw what happened during COVID and, just a few pieces of the puzzle fall apart and suddenly the whole system isn't working. It's surprisingly not robust. And Like, I'm not saying that I want to plan for like full total society collapse or anything, but I just want to take like a little bit of pressure off of that system, and have like some piece of self-sufficiency in this. And like on the other side of that, I also do want to be able to eat healthier food and things that I can't get from the store. So, you know, growing all these interesting tomato or pepper varieties that you can't buy in the store, and also growing heirlooms that have not been like over selected for shelf life over nutrient value. And lastly, I want to grow food because I am very connected to food in that I love cooking and I love sharing food with my friends and family. That's like a big part of my personality. And so growing food as part of that, I think makes a lot of sense. And from there, I started thinking about also how do I grow a garden that aligns with my tastes. Like, I bet you guys have heard people talking about, or maybe you've even been one of these people, where it's like, I'm gonna grow tomatoes and peppers because that's what gardeners grow. I see a lot of beginners gardeners doing that, and you know, in their defense, that is the sort of starts that you see at the store. You see tomatoes and peppers and maybe some zucchini starts, and like you just think that's what gardeners grow. And it is very common stuff to grow. But then the number of times people then turn around and say, oh yeah, and I don't even like raw tomatoes. Like, I am one of those people. But I know that I have space to grow enough to do other things with tomatoes other than eat them raw. But I think instead of diving right into what can I grow, stepping back and saying, what do I want to grow? What do I want to put in my space that is going to align with my tastes? And that can be your like physical tastes, like food. If you're growing flowers, it can be like what kind of flowers bring you joy, etc., etc. And actually considering that, like, it seems logical when I say it out loud, but I think a lot of people somehow miss this step. And as I've gone through this, you know, we start thinking about, okay, what is your climate? How much rain is there going on? And also, how much time do you have to dedicate to like working in your garden? Because having a bigger garden, it's not just more time planting and harvesting, but it is also going to take a bigger toll on your body. And I think you have to be really honest with yourself about like, what can I actually handle? And for people who are new, I think that thinking smaller than you really think you need to is a good place to start, because giving yourself breathing room to get the basics right is, I think, really important. I don't want new gardeners to be overwhelmed and burned out by gardening in their first year. I want them to be excited and like ready to do more. Ms. Sharon, makes my heart happy to see somebody as young as you doing this. Oh, thank you. I'm not as young as you might think I am. I am 31 years old, about to be 32 in May. Okay, so this next page is about thinking about the actual physical space that you have to plant in, because we do eventually have to consider that. And then all of this right here that you see, this is taking into account where the shade of the garden comes into play. Like this last row I have over here, it's almost entirely shade. And I have to think about that when I'm deciding what to plant in this area. "68 is still young, Miss Sharon. 68 is still young." Also, I'm like really happy to hear that you're enjoying my content too, that I can like speak to people from such different walks of life. Okay, where was I? Oh, hello, Miss Kata. Do you want to say hi to everybody? I gotta try and keep you from knocking my camera. Those of you who've been watching my channel a while, can you tell the cats apart yet? I think they look very different personally, but I see them every single day. So, yeah. You don't even know how many fans you have, Miss Kata. You don't even know. Okay. Alright, since she wants to be here, I'm going to see if I can do this with her on my lap. Alright, so we go from figuring out what you actually want to plant to, okay, how do I take that and turn that into an actual plan of what to do? So we go all the way through, okay, what temperatures can things handle? Okay, you are not going to, you're not going to get up there. Okay. Honey. Okay. So what temperatures can things actually handle? How long do they take to grow? And does that match with our climate? Oh my goodness, you see her little paw? She is like determined to be a part of this. If you sit down over there, you can stay, but you've got to sit down, honey, okay? Oh, okay, where was I? Oh yeah. So climate data on annuals, on perennials. Y'all, Kata is always like this. She just wants to stick her face in every single thing I do. Alright, so this is just telling you about how to do this. But this is something that I did for the very first time this year. And now that I've done it, I'm like, oh yeah, I think everybody should do this. I have been I had ideas in my head about what this information was going to be. And all of this, I feel like I knew pretty much. But specifically, the soil requirements of the stuff that I was growing, I was really expecting everything to be in this column of like loamy, well-draining soil that has like a mix of sandy and clay and like some organic matter and stuff like that. But there's actually a lot of stuff in these other two columns that I really wasn't expecting. I learned for the first time that if you have clay soil, that's actually really good for things with shallow root systems that are heavy feeders because they don't have to dig down too deep into that clay. And clay also does a really good job of holding on to nutrients better than other soils that kind of drain more readily, just because not as much water is like kind of flushing out all of those nutrients. So clay can actually be really nice for some things. And sandy can also be really nice for some things. I think it makes sense with like stuff growing in the ground, carrots, potatoes. Why do I have potatoes on there twice? I don't know. I think I meant, I have peanuts. Oh, sweet potatoes. That's what it says. Some potatoes and sweet potatoes. Yes, honey. And then I also learned through this process of research that nasturtiums need poor soil to actually flower really well. And that's something that I might not have known if I hadn't taken the time to look up all of this different information about these plants. You know, I was sitting here just kind of assuming I knew, and it turns out I did not. All right. Oh, honey. We are not going to do this right now. I'm going to have to move you. Sorry, guys. She's my little soccer player. Every time I try to touch her in a way that she doesn't want, like before I've even touched her, she will start crying like I'm like killing her. So I went through all of this and I learned some stuff about my plants that I didn't know before. And I also went through and made myself plan out how I was going to support everything. Like you guys know I have all these trellises, but I am adding some new stuff that is going to need trellising. And also last year I had already bought the grapes and the hardy kiwi plants before I built the pergola. I was like, I have these plants that I bought on a whim. What am I going to do with them? And then, you know, me and my dad built a whole pergola about it. So this year I wanted to be more intentional and actually like, okay, where is everything going? You can see I have passion flower on here, and that is actually going to probably need a new trellis. I also have stuff that I'm planning on growing like on the same trellis as the tomatoes, and also growing up the corn that I'm trying to plant, which I think I tried to do that last year and it never really panned out. But again, if I had written about it in my journal section, maybe I would remember what I was thinking during that time. Do the same thing with perennials and annuals that we do every year, and this is the part that I want to do with you, which is figuring out, okay, when do I actually need to start doing this stuff? So we're going to take a look at some of the most common annuals that I'm growing. Let's flip all the way back to here. All right, so we've got tomatoes, peppers, eggplant. Those are kind of the big three that I'm going to be starting soon. So let's look at this. Tomatoes, I know, need to be planted. I even say it here, 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date. So I'll go 8 weeks just to be safe. 8 times 7 is 56. So this needs to be 56 days before April 3rd. All right, so let's take a look at my calendar here. We can even count 8 weeks before April 3rd if we want. April 3rd, 2025. Okay. So we're going to say, what is that? That's a Thursday? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's February 6th. I'm going to be out of town until the 11th, I think. So I'm probably just going to move that to February 13th. And that's like kind of generally what we'll do. I think I will do peppers. We'll get started at the same time. They actually are going to need to go in almost an entire month later, but they also grow slower. Same thing with eggplant. So generally you'll see me start tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant all on the same day because of that. I'm sorry if my handwriting sucks right now because I have to write kind of sideways so that you guys can see it. But all of these will probably be starting on February 13th. And then what I'm going to go and look at is, because on the next page we're going to fill in when I'm expecting to transplant and harvest these. So tomatoes, I'll probably be putting out like mid-April. I want it to be after the frost, and it can still be like a little cool outside, but I want it to be not getting below 40 degrees. So we'll put a note here. Above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. With peppers, this will probably be beginning of May. I know that based on my experience with it. We want this to be above 50 degrees Fahrenheit at night. I guess I should clarify. Above these temperatures at night. If you plant peppers before then, they probably won't die, but they won't grow quite as fast. And for those of you who are in colder climates where you don't have quite as much time, you might have to plan to like start them a little bit sooner and let them get bigger before you transplant them out, just to give them like a good amount of time at a nice, really warm temperature. Miss Sharon says, are you counting as planting seedlings or from seed? So that's a really good question. This date right here is from seed. Seedlings will be this column right here, mid-April, beginning of May. And that is something that I think seed packets have really failed us on a lot. I have all my seeds over here. A lot of seed packets say, X days till harvest, And what they really mean is X days after transplanting a seedling till harvest. So you usually have to add like 6 to 8 weeks on to that specific number. But yeah, good clarification. This is from seed, and this is my transplant here. Eggplant is going to be exactly the same, beginning of May here. Peppers and eggplants, very similar growing conditions. In my experience, they both like it really hot, and they're both pretty good with it being dry too, but definitely they want it hot. Oh, you're so welcome, Miss Sharon. All right, so let's look. What else do we need to take into account? So I'm going to look at stuff that I know that I need to start from seed. So basil is always on there. All right, so basil, I'm pretty sure that one is 6 weeks as well. Let me see if I can find a seed packet and check. Y'all, look at this. I have so many seeds that I'm planting this year. If you guys want me to, you'll have to ask. But if you want me to, I can go through all the different varieties of everything that I'm growing on here. Where are you, Basil? You in this big stack here. Sure about going through different varieties? All right, if we have time at the end, I will go through all my different varieties. I feel like maybe I forgot to get out all my basil seeds. Let's check. Does this one have basil in it? Yes. This has basil in it. Okay. So these say 6 to 8 weeks before last frost. Okay, that kind of confirms what I thought. So that'll probably get planted, like honestly, at the same time as everything else. Let's make it easy, because there's quite a bit of wiggle room on stuff like this. Also, I'm curious, how many of you guys watching, like how many years have each of you been gardening? Like, are you really new to this? You've been doing this like forever? I'm curious. What variety of hot peppers are you planting this year? Yeah, we will, if we have time, we'll go through that at the end, especially since I know you guys are curious. Okay, basil. I think this is probably going to go out sometime in between when the tomatoes and the peppers go out. So we'll just say like end of April-ish. Basil can take a little bit more cold than the peppers and the eggplants, but not like a whole lot. And I do want it to go in near the tomatoes. So we'll probably be trying to sync those up. Oh, and Kata is now over here on the other side of me trying to be a little menace. All right, what else is on the list over here? So we did tomatoes, peppers, eggplant. Noodle beans are going to be direct sow. Oh, let's see. All of this is direct sow, direct sow, direct sow. Some of this is cold weather. Okay, flowers. Zinnias, nasturtiums. I'll probably start zinnias indoors ahead of time. Although last year I did that and I planted out some of them and that went really well, but also there was a ton of volunteers that showed up. I do have a zinnia packet here. When to start inside 4 to 6 weeks before average frost date. So we'll go ahead and say, let's see if we did that on February 13th. We'll start zinnias on February 27th. Right? And then we'll also put those out maybe near the end of April. Zinnias are like pretty tolerant in my opinion. Last year I put them out with, like, I think it got pretty cold and I was like, oh man, these things might die. Like, they got a little frost damage and everything. And then they came back fine. Like, zinnias are like super hard to kill. Let's see, I think chamomile is cold weather. That's probably all the like indoor stuff that I'll have to start ahead of time. Everything else is going to be direct sow, at least for me, because I do have like quite a warm climate. So noodle beans, when are we going to be planting noodle beans? All right, so this is all indoor. And we've got my noodle beans. When are we going to be planting you guys? I think they'll have to go out after the frost. Like, almost all of this stuff needs to go out after the frost. Let's see. Oh, I've got an answer. 48 years with a 7-year break on ships while in the Navy. Wow. That is so much experience. That's awesome. Okay, noodle beans, they're going to have to go out after chance of frost is over. So we will shoot for mid-April here. I want to start planting these out as soon as possible because they have a big habit of being eaten by the pill bugs when they're little baby sprouts. So I'm probably going to have to succession plant quite a few in order to outcompete what the pill bugs can eat. Plant like 3 or 4 times as many as I think I'm going to need. And cucumbers, we're going to do the same thing as the noodle beans, especially since they're both going out. Cucumber, yeah, I spelled that right. Since they're going out on a trellis, just like the noodle beans. I think what we're going to find is mid to late April is when a lot of this direct sow stuff is going to go out. So chickpeas is on my list. That's kind of a wish for me, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have space for them, especially with all the other new stuff that's going out. Blue cocoa beans, those can absolutely go. We're just going to call them pole beans for shortness. Those are also going to need to go out probably with tomatoes about that same time. Okay, this one, let's see, garlic, onions, leeks, all of that is fall. Basil we did, cilantro is cold weather. Next thing is potatoes. So you guys know I'm doing Jerusalem artichokes, aka sunchokes, this year. But I think I also am going to try and preserve my purple potatoes just because they're so pretty. And maybe I'll only have a few of them, but I don't want to lose them fully. And potatoes in this area, I know from experience, go out in mid-March. They can handle just a little bit of cold, and so we put them in kind of right before frost is supposed to be over. Celery is fall, Brussels sprouts fall, pumpkins. I am doing pumpkins this year, hopefully. That'll be another direct sow. After chance of frost is gone. With squash, I'm going to have to do either super early or super late because I'm going to be combating against the bugs. And so I'll probably do 2 plantings. Dr. Green Thumb, 8 years. Any trays? I hope you don't have any trays of sad buddies on your steps this year. Thank you. If you want to try a medium unblemished tomato, give Super CU a try. I might do that. I do currently have a tray of sad little plants still outside. I don't know if you guys have seen it recently, but it's all the way back from when I had all my kale and Brussels sprout starts, like, they're still alive. They're all this big, barely hanging on, and I have not done anything with them. Okay, pumpkins, yeah. So twice to kind of try and get around bugs, because if we do early, they might get big enough to fend them off, and if we do late, they might be past, their peak season. So we'll do these at like the beginning of April. And then again, pumpkins need how long to grow? 120 days. So that's almost like I could almost do them halfway through my growing season. So if we do these again in like late June, that might end up working out. We'll see. We might not have to if these early ones do well enough. I'm gonna do same thing for summer squash. I've gotten varieties this year that are supposed to be more native to this area and supposed to be more resistant to kind of the critters that I've been dealing with, the vine borers and the squash bugs. So we'll see. We'll see if that makes a difference. I am cautiously hopeful right now. Okay, let's see. Blue butterfly peas. So these are, I'm also going to start blue butterfly peas. I'm also going to start these pretty early because they take like quite a while to germinate and kind of get started and established. So we're going to also try putting these out mid-April. Fava beans is fall. Next we've got corn. Let's see, how many varieties of corn do I have? I have at least two. I have two main varieties of popcorn, and so in order to not have them cross-pollinate, I need to separate them by at least 2 weeks, but I'm probably going to go 4 weeks separate so that they're not tasseling at the same time. Popcorn. So we'll do some in mid-April. And then again in mid-May. So we're going to have to plan for that when we do the drawing in a minute. Whoop. What else we got? Ginger, turmeric. Ginger. So this one I've actually already started. This one should be with the indoor ones. We're back to this, aren't we, Kata? So this starts in January because it takes a really long time for it to like kind of germinate and get going. And ginger actually does take uh, 8 to 10 months. So that's 300 days, and I have 213 days frost-free. So I do have to give them more time than I actually have here in my climate. It is a tropical plant, so, Hey! Am I gonna have to put you outside, honey? Alright. Let's go outside. I know. I know. It's okay. Ooh, trying not to bump my camera. Okay. So we were on ginger. So I've started this in January because it takes like a really long time. I should probably start my turmeric too. I actually haven't gotten around to that. So we'll also start that ASAP, but I'll put down January. And these are going to go out also after threat of frost, but probably a little later. end of April, just because they are tropical plants and we want them to have the heat to work with. Oh, also with the turmeric, I have some that are currently still in the ground. The person who gave me the starts told me that they might survive the winter if I mulch them heavy enough and come back again next year. So they are covered in straw, and we'll see if those ones actually come back up. Ginger, turmeric, peanut. That is something new that I'm doing this year. And I actually have no idea what I'm doing as far as peanuts. So I might have to look up that one later. But like, I did not know all this stuff before when I started gardening. All I will do is Google it. And my guess is that it will be similar to like either potatoes or, you know, all this other stuff. I bet that I will just put it in the ground after threat of frost. And it takes, how long does it take? Peanuts, 150 days. Yeah, so that's plenty of time for me to put it in after threat of frost and still get a good harvest. And also when I was going through and noting down all of these days till harvest, I went with the longer ones just to, like, you know, give myself a little bit of wiggle room on that. So like peanuts could be done even earlier, but 150 days is like, okay, like that's, if you're within 150 days, then you're well within the right amount of time. So we'll have to come back to that one, but I'm betting that it is after frost. Rutabaga, carrot, beets, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, lettuce, spinach. All of that is fall. Sweet potato. Yeah, sweet potatoes are going to have to go in. I will start making slips from my sweet potatoes probably about the same time that I'm starting these. So we'll just put mid-February for that and plant them out around the end of April with all this other stuff. Zinnias. Let's see that. Those are already on here. Poppies. I'm expecting those to come up from seeds that have been dropped from previous years. So I'm not going to do anything with the poppies. I'm just going to hope that the seeds that dropped last year reseed themselves properly. Chamomile is fall. Nasturtium. I tried starting those inside last year, and that actually didn't go very well. They did much better direct sown. So we're going to put nasturtium as probably also mid to late April. Last thing, southern peas. That is another one that is new for me this year. Those are like the black-eyed pea type beans. I've got a few different varieties of those, and those are definitely like a heat loving thing. How many days do they need? Where are they? They're 100 days. So I could do those through the hottest part of the year, which I probably will. So I'll start those in the ground in like, I don't know, end of May, June, something like that. It'll be nice and hot, and they will absolutely love it. So I'm going to take a lot of this and start transferring it over to here because, well, this is all well and good. Actually seeing it in like a calendar format, I think, is really helpful. I already got started here. I've got tomato filled in, and I started with peppers. I was going to look when I actually was harvesting peppers this past year to get an idea of what it'll be this year. So if we look, sweet pepper season, I got to the right page. Sweet pepper season started in July. So we went July 13th all the way through frost, I believe. October, November, yeah. I was still picking them on November 21st. So we can safely say, oh, what did I say? Did I say June or July when it started? July. Yeah, July. So July through November is my harvest. I'm just going to put a big H here. Eggplants. Oh, sorry guys. That is started same as these. February, transplanted here. And when was I harvesting eggplant? This one was later. This one was August through October. So August through October. That's actually a much shorter season. Eggplant did not do that well last year though. Hopefully I'll get a little bit more of a harvest season this year. They were struggling with that soil that went bad. Okay. What else are we looking at? Basil. We are starting in February here. We are transplanting that out end of April here. And then I don't have basil harvest on my calendar, but that is almost certainly like June through November. It gets to be ready pretty quick. And then it, you can keep harvesting from it all the way up until it dies of frost. Zinnia. We are starting you also in February. Transplanting out end of April. And then, we say harvest. When is it going to be blooming? It will also be blooming from June, like literally all the way until the frost kills it, and sometimes even a little bit after. Are all these pages included with your planner? Yes, absolutely. Everything that is in here is included in the planner, and we'll go through more of that kind of after I finish this page, but everything that has been in this binder is included. This that I've been looking at is separate, and this is what I was doing before, but there are calendar pages here for you guys to be using, exactly like these pages that I've been using, so it's all together. Noodle beans. We're gonna do probably all the beans together. Just save space. So those are gonna go out mid-April. So we'll put plant here. And then harvest for those will be, do I have them on here? I don't know if I do. I might have written them down. Let's see, tiny tomato harvests here. July, first noodle bean harvest in July. So we'll do, and these beans generally I'm harvesting again all the way through the frost. Cucumbers. These we are putting out also April. Yes. And harvesting probably general. I don't think I have wrote it down in here, especially because I had such trouble with getting them to not be eaten by the little pill bugs. But I'm thinking harvest is going to be in this general time frame. Pole beans, we went with beans. Potatoes. Potats. These go out in March. And they will get harvested on a single day in... Oh, when did I... This is why I've loved having this calendar. When did I harvest my potatoes last year? Did I even write it down? I don't know if I wrote it down. This is why also having a YouTube channel has been nice, because if I wasn't sitting here on live with you guys, I would just start looking through my videos and trying to figure out when I did what. Yeah. Unfortunately, I forgot to write down when my potato harvest was. Okay. So we're gonna guess how many days for potatoes. Where did I write that down? Potato, 90 days. Okay, so 90 days after March. So June. And if I want to, I can plant fall potatoes here. So we just put plant again, harvest here. Excellent. What kind of basil do I grow? So I'm gonna grow over more of these varieties later, but I do grow like a sweet basil, I grow a purple basil, and I grow my Tulsi basil. Oh, thank you, Ms. Sharon. July. So did I get that right? Very close. I put June, July. Yeah, so regular basil, purple basil, and my holy basil, Tulsi. In the past, I've also grown lemon basils and cinnamon basils, but I think I'm gonna not do those this year, just because I didn't have a lot of use for lemon basil, and well, maybe I will grow cinnamon basil. Cinnamon basil and Thai basil are almost exactly the same, but I absolutely need to have my regular basil, my purple basil, and my holy basil. Those are the three that I'm definitely not gonna skip. What was I doing? Oh yeah. Pumpkins. Those are going out beginning of April. And they should take how many days? 120. So that's 4 months. 1, 2, 3, 4. Harvest in August. I'm betting it'll probably be closer to like September. And the reason I think that is because I think even if the pest pressure isn't as bad, I think the pest pressure will slow it down a little bit from what is expected. And also the pumpkin I'm growing is a pretty big pumpkin, and it might take itself just a little bit longer to get there. Summer squash. So those we're going to plant out about the same time, but they're going to be ready so so much sooner. Did I write down a number of days for those? Yeah, 55 days. So that is like 2-ish months. So we're like harvesting here already. Maybe also some in July, but those plants will probably die pretty quick. Blue butterfly peas. BBPs. We are planting those out in April. And then they will be flowering pretty much the entire season. I'll go ahead and conservatively say they start flowering in like July or something. Popcorn. We are planting popcorn in April and in May. So we'll plant here and plant here. And both of those I'm actually going to leave until they like dry out on the stalks. So I'm probably going to do one big harvest in like the October time frame. Hi Trina, nice to have you here. I was asking everybody earlier how long they've been doing gardening. Alright, so ginger and turmeric, we will put them on the same line just because they're going to be very, very similar. So we've got ginger put out, well, I said April. So we started it in January. Start, transplant, and then those I harvest right before the frost. So I give them literally as long as possible. Seriously, gardening for 7 years. That's awesome. 7 years is like quite a while. Let's see, we haven't done peanuts yet because I'm going to need to do some Googling, and literally every device I have right now is tied up in doing this live stream. Sweet potatoes. Potatoes. Potat. We're starting slips in February. Planting them out in April, transplant, and then harvesting. That is also one big harvest, usually right around frost time, I think. Why did I put hi here? Was I saying hi to somebody while I was writing that? Nasturtiums. We are starting you at the end of April. Plant. And harvest is like whenever they're flowering, right? So that'll probably be like a July through frost kind of thing. And the southern peas. We're starting you at the end of May. And they take, it said 100 days, right? Yeah, 100 days. So that's like 3-ish months. So 1, 2, 3. We'll be harvesting probably like August, September-ish time frame there. Alright, so now I've got all this. If I wanted to, which I might at a later time, I might go through and color code all of these and say, okay, like every time I need to start something, it's blue, transplant is green, harvest is like red or whatever, so that I can come back to this page and see at a glance what I'm expecting to have happen in my garden. And also, Trina, to get you up to speed, since you weren't here this whole time, I am working inside a planner, a garden planner that I designed myself for this year, because I felt like the other options that were available to me were not doing exactly what I wanted them to do. And so I've made it available to all of you guys on my website. The link is in the description if you want to check it out, as a PDF download. All right, we're finally in the fun part, which is drawing everything. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to fill in where all of my perennials are. So we've got, like, technically blueberries in here. And we've got my big blackberry bushes in here. I've got 3 big blackberries, 3 big raspberries, and my kumquat and my fig. And then out here is where the limequat died. So we've got blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, how do I spell kumquat, guys? I know it starts with a K. K-U-M, is it K-W-A-T or Q-U-A-T? We're gonna go with Q-U-A-T. Okay, thank you. Kumquats. And this one might not even be here still. Like, it is very questionable right now whether it's gonna make it through the winter. It has, like, it's been losing leaves. It has like 5 leaves left. But man, if it makes it through, it'll be in such good shape this spring. So I am actually not doing a lot in this area. Strawberries are also kind of everywhere in this area. This is all as it will be. I'm not going to be doing a lot to change the berry patch. In here, I have asparagus. Over here, and this is the white bed that has the big, like, worm bucket here, and I've got marshmallow here, so there is a little bit of room. Oh, and there's yarrow in here as well. There's a little bit of room in here to add in a couple of annuals, but most of this is perennial. This is my green Vigo bed. So this is the one that has, like, the thyme and I think the oregano is here. I've got sage here. There's a feverfew here. Thyme. Sage. Oh, I labeled those wrong. Sage and feverfew are right next to each other, though. And this is my oregano. This would be so much prettier if I could actually, like, not be all sideways while I'm writing. Over here is the stevia, which should come back. I feel like I'm missing something here. Oh, parsley. My parsley was here, but that's biennial, so it died. I'll probably put in more parsley there this year too. For parsley, guys, I literally just buy the one from the store that you get in, like, the produce section, where you can get, like, a live basil plant or whatever, and then it's so many plants together, you can just separate it into, like, 3 or 4 different plants and plop them down, and I have never seen any reason to do it differently. Parsley. Okay, and this is my tiered, the Vejiga bed here. And this is where the top of this is carrots right now. And over here, what do I have here right now? This one is full of more thyme. This is the hi-ho thyme. This one is my Greek oregano. This is lemon thyme down here. And I know there's something in here, but I can't remember what's in here. We've got more thyme, more oregano, and even more thyme here. This top part will be available for annuals, but I think that's actually going to be flowering carrots. So I'll probably go ahead and just label that as my carrots, because I do want seeds from those, and that'll take like a good long while into the season to get those. This is the orange Vigo bed. This is the one that had the sweet potatoes in it. So this is fully free. And this is the one that is currently like really sad looking, the blue one with all of the like dead brassicas in it. Let's see, perennials that I have over here. There is a lavender plant here. And along the edges, we have some strawberries. What else do I have over here? There's a skullcap, like right here. I've got a blueberry bush in this corner. And hopefully I will have like this section here next to the lavender. This is where I've put some potato onions that hopefully will live for many years. Right down the middle of this, I'm going to put some little dots. This represents the garlic that I have in here. This goes all the way down. Oh, I should draw in my trellises. So we've got my big tomato trellis here. If you guys have any questions while I go through this process, like please feel free to chime in about that. This is tomatoes, beans, and basil, like we did last year. I've got my other big trellises here, my little arches. So one of these is going to be noodle beans. I had planned that out on one of these pages. What are we doing with all my trellises? So yeah, tomatoes go where they've always gone. Noodle beans are going to go. I think I want them on the same trellis as last year. I think they look really good near the front. So that leaves this for butterfly peas, BB peas, and any cucumber, just like last year. Hopefully we can get them to germinate better than they did last year. Other stuff that needs support, scarlet runner beans. Those are going to go on that trellis that is like here over the pathway. I don't have room for that here. Cocoa beans with the tomatoes. This bean is going to go on the corn whenever I decide where that is. And I need to figure out where new trellis is going to go if I'm going to do passion flower. But what I do know is, since that's a perennial here, it's like a native perennial in my area, I'm probably going to put that with more of the perennial stuff. So like maybe I will do some research on, can it climb up my fig tree, for example, and have that be like kind of a symbiotic little relationship there. That would actually be really convenient if I could do something like that. Otherwise, I might put it on my pergola. And then, of course, grapes and kiwis are already on the pergola. So those are all taken care of. And I have a perennial cucumber that is going to go on arch 1, which is the scarlet runner bean arch, the one that's over the path. So in addition to my Scarlet Runner beans, I'm going to try and be growing this perennial cucumber, which is like a very new variety. And it says that it should be good down to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's like right on the edge of what can survive perennial here in my area. All right, what else are we putting in? So we're doing lots of peppers and eggplant, and I think that that's going to be like this entire row is going to end up being peppers and eggplant. I also last year did some of it in here, but before we write all of that in, I want to look at what else I need to accommodate for. So potatoes, I did those in this blue one this past year, and that'll work out pretty well. Pumpkins though, pumpkins are going to need a lot of space, and that's something I haven't had to plan for. Where am I going to put my pumpkins? Which of these things is going to do best in the shade? Like, who can I shove over to the shady area of the garden? Partial shade. Most of that is not what we're looking at. Lettuce, cilantro, carrot, beet, onion, potato. I could put the potatoes over there, I guess. Spinach, kale, garlic, peanuts could also go over there in the shady section of the garden. So what if we did potatoes and peanuts over here? Those are both like gonna be somewhat similar plants, and I think you hill up peanuts the same way that you hill up potatoes, so it might actually be kind of convenient to have them all together. Do I have a perennial here? I don't think I do. Oh, you know what I'm missing is my feverfew here and my lemon balm here. With our heat, the turmeric and ginger could do well in partial shade, maybe. Yeah, you might be right. They are definitely very tropical though, so they do like the heat and humidity. I did see this past year though, when we had drought, I had a turmeric out here and a turmeric over here, and the one over here did like way better, but it was also smaller than this one that was getting more sun. So it's kind of like a trade-off, you know? If I was to water this one more, I think it would have been doing better. But y'all know I had that drought and like refused to water because I was like, oh, it's gonna rain soon. It's gonna rain soon, and then it didn't. So I have some turmeric here and some turmeric here that I'm trying to see if either one of those survives the winter. But we could potentially do, so this section, if we go back to the shade map, which is here. So this section is the least shady section of this whole row, and then it gets like kind of progressively shadier out this way. So if I do maybe ginger and turmeric out here, and do maybe peanuts and potatoes in this bigger section out here. And this is also why I'm gonna like having the chance to print out more than one of these, because this is gonna change and I'm gonna need a page to write down what I actually did. Y'all know I do this planning and I have like this general idea, and sometimes I change my mind at the last minute, which is fine. This is like really a general thing to do. What else do we have to take into account here? Okay, the corn is also going to be one of the big ones. And sweet potatoes, I think I want to put sweet potatoes where I think I want to do sweet potatoes in here because they seem to be not as affected by the bad soil. And hopefully like as that soil is recovering from whatever was wrong with it, sweet potatoes will still be doing good in that area. Trina, I have some shade in my food forest and I use the edge a lot here in Texas. Yeah, Texas is really hot. Did y'all know I used to live in North Texas, right near Amarillo? It's flat and hot and dry, basically all the time. Okay, so if we've got sweet potatoes here, next thing we have to figure out is where's the corn going. So I think I like using these back sections for corn. So we can probably do like a block of corn here and a block of corn back here. And as long as, like I said, they are far enough away in time, we don't have to worry about them cross-pollinating with each other. I want a lot of popcorn. I really do. I'm really sad that I ran out of my popcorn from last year. So we've got my 2 different corns. And we will have plus beans. We'll have some pole beans here. Plus beans. And the last thing to think about is pumpkins. Those are going to need so much space. I'm tempted to just like put them in here and let them sprawl into the yard. One year I had a pumpkin that was planted like here-ish, and it went all the way up my tree. Like there's a tree over here that casts that shade. It was climbing all the way up my tree. Like absolutely wild. We'll just do this whole bed here as pumpkins. Now we've got to put in my summer squash. That's got to go somewhere. Oh, I do have a perennial here. This is my mallow. I have so many perennials just stuffed in here, guys. Right. Oh, I forgot about the southern peas too. Where are we putting southern peas, guys? If I still want to have room for peppers and eggplants, where are we putting the southern peas? Like I technically have a little bit of room in here, but that's probably not like the type of volume that I'm looking for from southern peas, because that's going to be like a dried bean that I'm trying to harvest. I wonder, I usually plant my peppers and eggplants pretty close together, especially the peppers, because they like to hold each other up. And I've tried so many different ways of supporting them, and literally just planting them close together seems to be the best thing for me right now. We could do, by the time I'm planting them too, it'll be like midsummer, because I was looking at this section back here and thinking, oh, maybe I could squeeze them in here, but this will be like full grass by the time I'm looking at doing that. Do I actually have room to plant southern peas? If that has to fall off the list, it has to fall off the list, you know? Because having my peppers and my eggplants is really important to me. I think we're going to go ahead and say we're going to put in like a couple of summer squash here in between, and have the whole rest of this section be peppers and eggplants on either side of this row of garlic here. I don't know why I ever plan to have a walkway through here, because every single year I just don't walk through there. It gets so overgrown. Maybe I can actually take advantage of that and plant some stuff in here too. Kind of give myself a little bit of extra space. I also do currently have onions planted out here along the outsides of these trellises. Those are far enough away not to get in the way of anything though. And there's also onions like all along the back row here of this and through the center of where this corns and beans is going to be. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, yeah, there's not really room for southern peas. Like I could maybe do a few in here and kind of get an idea of how they grow, but I'm not going to be able to do them in the kind of volume that I would really like to do them as a dried bean. I think nasturtiums can just go around the edges. There's a sort of small plant it can plug in anywhere. And I'll probably end up putting a little bit of ginger and turmeric, like maybe along this edge, maybe mixed in with my peppers and eggplants like I always do. And I also do have technically space here and here for a few little things as well. But this is generally what I think I'm going to be doing. Put cardboard down to deter the grass and then add soil on top for the peas. Ms. Sharon, I wish that worked. I've tried that a few different times, but the problem is I have Bermuda grass, and if it gets through even in a tiny spot or comes from the outside, it can just like grow straight along the top, and just it's like you didn't even do anything to keep it back. What I'm eventually going to have to do, and what I need to spend more time considering that I haven't had time to yet, is what am I going to plant along the edges to keep the grass back? What is going to outcompete the grass? Right now I have strawberries here, and strawberries do a pretty good job, but there's only a little bit here. And I don't actually need all of this to be strawberries because I have so many strawberries already here in the berry patch. So I need to find something else that's going to be good, especially in this really high sun corner back here. So the next thing to ask myself is, does the plan I've created meet my goals? Right? My goal is growing as much food as I can and thinking about the amount of time that I actually have available to devote to this. And like with the southern peas, right? My goal would be to actually have an edible amount of them. And I definitely can't fit that in here. But if I was only going to plant a couple of them, that probably also wouldn't be meeting my goals. I have big goals of having a lot of eggplant and peppers, so I've prioritized that. Peanuts and potatoes here, they're probably taking up more space than I really need to give to them, but I don't have a lot of good stuff to put in this shady section of my garden anyway. So if I didn't plant these here, that would be forfeit space. This past year, I put barely anything over here, and it got really overgrown with weeds. And I really would like for it to be a little bit more productive this year. And now the last and very essential part is, what am I going to do with this harvest? This is not something I'm going to do on camera with you guys because we're already at an hour and a half of this live stream. But I think it's really important to consider what you're going to do with the produce that you're trying to grow. Everybody has heard of that gardener who grows zucchini and then suddenly has so many zucchini that they don't even know what to do with, and they're like hiding them in their friends' cars or leaving them on people's porch steps. And I don't want to end up in a situation where I can't use all of the produce that I've been growing, which I have, like multiple years, ended up in a situation where a lot of my hard-earned harvest has just gone into the compost because I didn't figure out what to do with it ahead of time, and therefore in the middle of harvesting growing season got overwhelmed and didn't end up using it. So I'm going to make a plan for every single thing that I'm going to be getting out of the garden, and like be able to refer back to this page, like say, oh, I just brought in Borghese tomatoes. Those are all going to be sun-dried. Or you can dehydrate everything. Yeah, that's kind of what I do when I panic. It's like dehydrate it all or freeze it, depending on what it is. But if I say, okay, this specific variety of pepper gets this treatment and this specific variety of tomato gets that treatment, then as soon as it comes in, I'm not spending all that mental energy figuring out what to do. I just have a plan and I know. So I'm going to try that out this year. I think it's going to make a big difference in the overwhelm that I feel during harvest season. And when I get done with that, I will start adding everything that we just talked about to my calendar pages. So I'll go in and on February 13th, all right, okay, we're going to start all of these different plants. And, I'll go in my April section and I'll try and choose dates that I think will actually be good for me to go ahead and put stuff out in the garden. We've got my estimated last frost here, so I can go ahead and put that in. And when the last frost does happen, I'll be able to write down in here when it actually was. Let's see what happened this past year. I planted tomatoes outside on April 10th last year. I did not keep track, did I? I think in 2023, I might have written down when the frosts were. Yeah, here we have a frost on the 10th of April. So tomatoes were transplanted on the 13th. And I had thought maybe I might have to wait till the 21st, but I went ahead and did it early in 2023. So this is the sort of data that's going to be in the calendar section. And as we move through the year, I'll be filling in the journal section, and I'll actually talk about this with you guys in the weekly garden tours. You have to go prepare my lasagna. Did you answer my basil inquiry? I did. I don't know if you're listening. I'm going to grow regular basil and purple basil and holy basil for sure. Anything else I grow beyond that, we'll see. But those are the three for sure. Hey. Oh, thanks for catching me live. So I was talking about the journal. I do have suggested prompts for myself and for also you guys who decide to download it. I'll go through some of these with you. My favorite ones, I love the big ideas page, because just having a place to dump stuff that you're thinking about comes in handy. Seasonal evaluation. So like, say we come to the end of summer and I want to think about how did summer go, and I want to do that before I get all the way to the planning section here in January. I think that will be really useful. There is a framework in here for solving problems and kind of thinking through, okay, I'm really sad that this thing failed, but I'm not going to sit with that sadness for too long. I'm good to look at what I'm going to change based on what I've learned from that. And another one that I'm really excited about is a reminder to celebrate successes. You guys have heard of gratitude practices, and I used to think that those were like really silly and they didn't really do anything. But then I learned more about how the brain works. And as humans, we're really wired to look at the negative things. Like if something bad happens to us, evolutionarily, it is really important to remember that bad thing and avoid it again. And so remembering to think of the positive things, it's really hard. And so when you make yourself remember positive things and write them down, your brain starts to learn to look for them because it knows it will be asked to regurgitate them. And you just start noticing more of the positive stuff. So I think taking time to celebrate the things that go right is just as important as evaluating the things that did not go right. I also have in here, I'm going to maybe keep a running list of gift ideas, stuff I can do from the garden. I don't normally have a lot of money to spend on gifts for people, and so I like to have gifts from the garden ready to go. And there's a bunch more in here, and I also have put in some that are seasonal specific for each month. So this one is what was my favorite part of the garden this year. November's is what wise decisions this year do I want to remember. October's what advice would you give to someone starting a new garden next year? I think thinking about how you would teach something to others really helps you decide if you have learned it yourself. So I am going to take a bit of water. If you guys have any more questions before I start wrapping up the stream, please let me know. I might start going through some of these varieties that I had mentioned that we would talk about. I actually need more water. Turns out talking straight for an hour and a half makes your throat really dry. All right. Let's go ahead and close this up. Oh, and there is a colored cover for this that you can download if you want, but I made it in black and white because I know most of you aren't going to want to print it out in color. Okay, tomatoes that I'm growing this year, I've got Borghese, which is that little one that is really good for sun drying. I've got 2 different bags of saved seeds for that. I have some San Marzano seeds that I saved. Excuse me. I've been growing those every single year for this will be my 3rd or 4th year growing them. I really, really like the San Marzanos. I'm gonna grow black plum again. Here's some of my older seeds for the Borghese. Amish paste. I also really like that one because most of what I'm doing is making sauce. I've got San Marzanos, older ones in here. I also have Bisognano. I haven't decided if I'm for sure growing that one yet. I might. It turned out okay this year. And I also have on order some wild tomatoes. What are they? Currants? They're basically just wild tomatoes. They'll make really teeny tiny ones. And I thought that sounded like a really interesting, fun thing to try. So on top of just do all the same stuff over again, I'm also going to have a cool little fun thing. Trina, what do you use all your pesto on? The number one thing I make is pesto pasta. So I freeze my pesto into big cubes. And when I don't know what to make for dinner or I don't have a lot of time, but I still want something nutritious, I defrost one of those cubes and I boil some pasta, usually chickpea pasta. And I just do some pesto and some pasta. If I have sun-dried tomatoes, I'll chop some of those up and put them on. But that is the standard thing I do. The second most common thing I do is I'll make focaccia, and then I'll have a spread of of pesto and sun-dried tomatoes with the focaccia. That was actually a big hit at Thanksgiving and Christmas. It was super requested by all my relatives that I make that. All right, let's look at what I've got in my pepper stack. I've got Trepadero Warner. This is the one that's you can see it's these cute little berry shaped peppers. These I pickle like Peppadew peppers. I've got Tabasco. I've had good years and bad years for Tabasco. This past year was a bad year, unfortunately. More San Marzano that got mixed in. Fish peppers. These are the stripy ones. And I learned finally why they're called fish peppers. It is not a joke. They are just used for flavoring fish historically. That's why. But these are like pretty hot, and so these ones I usually freeze. I have banana pinos. These ones will be used in salsa and also for pickling. Sugar Rush Peach. These are pretty old seeds at this point. I don't know if they'll germinate, but these ones are for hot sauce and for drying. These seeds, I would really like them to germinate, but they did not germinate last year. So we're going to plant all the rest of them and see if we can get any. But these are like teeny tiny little peppers that are pretty hot. And I just think they're really cute. We've got Buena Mulata. So I've got my old seeds and then my saved seeds. I actually have some from 2023 and some from 2024. And the Buena Mulatas I use like whenever I need a frozen, like a fresh chili in a recipe. I freeze most of these and I just use them for cooking generally. I have Hong Gochu here, which I meant to use to make gochujang this year, but I did not get around to that. And also another pack of Tabascos. I think there should be more peppers in here. Yeah. So I also have all my chili peppers, so like things for making chili with. Carolina Cayenne. This is gonna be more adapted to Southeast where I am. I've got Guajillo, Chile de Arbol, and the Ancho Rojo pepper. So this is the trifecta of chili powder. Hi, Crystal. So these three I dry out and I put those into my chili powder that I make. Actually, my boyfriend was telling me that the chili that I make is so packed full of flavor, it's almost overwhelming, and I need to dilute it with like way more beans. So it's really, really good to make homemade chili powder, but man, it is apparently very strong. I have my corn varieties. I have Cherokee long ear popcorn and also glass gem popcorn, which is another like Cherokee variety. And specifically, I'm looking for Cherokee varieties because Cherokee are people who lived in this area historically. And so these varieties are going to be really well adapted to my area. And I also have this thing called Cherokee corn beads, which I may or may not end up planting, but I thought they sounded really cool. This says they're sometimes called Job's tears. The grains make perfect beads because they grow with a ready-made hole down the center that just takes a gentle poke with a needle to make it ready to string. So that just seems like a cool little thing. Maybe I'll put that in a couple of random places around the garden. I'm seeing more questions. How do you deal with garden pests in your area? I have a problem with tiny gophers that eat all my root crops. Okay, so I don't have personally a lot of experience with pests like that. I'm sure they exist, but just the sheer volume of feral cats in my neighborhood is insane. I have never seen a rodent. Aside from my two cats, I think my neighbor at any one time has like 10 rescues that all live over there, and then like almost every street as you're driving through my neighborhood you see feral cat. So yeah, rodents not really a problem. From other people that I have seen dealing with rodents, and especially gophers and the digging ones, it's like kind of high effort protecting each individual plant with like an underground cage, and that just seems like a lot, but it does seem like it would work. So that's all the advice I can give you because I've never really had to deal with that. Crystal asks, what do you use fish pepper for? I use fish pepper for my Indian cooking. So if I'm making a curry and it calls for a red chili, then I'll usually get a fish pepper out of the freezer and use that. Do you ever have to spray for insect pests on certain crops? If so, what do you recommend? So I do have pests on certain crops and they do get out of hand, but I am at a point in my gardening where I'm trying not to spray anything on my crops. I'm trying to solve these problems by working with the environment instead of against it. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll look at which specific pest I'm getting and try and figure out why it's there. So for aphids, for example, I've seen a lot of people talk about how they're really drawn to plants that have too much nitrogen. And so some people think that the plants are actually calling to the aphids to help them slow down their growth because they've got so much nitrogen and they are just exploding with all this green growth, and it's going to make them unhealthy. So the reason why is a theory, but we do know that aphids tend to show up on crops that are too high in nitrogen in the soil. And another thing is I've been doing a lot of research on how the health of a plant can actually deter pests in and of itself. There are instances of plants being so healthy that the foliage is indigestible to the pests that would try to munch on it. And so in general, what I'm looking to do is to make my soil and my plants healthy enough that they're not really getting pests, and if they are able to fend them off for themselves. Ms. Sharon says, my cats take care of most of the moles and voles, but I struggle with keeping the cats out of my garden beds. Yeah, honestly, same. I've had to just like be okay with certain stuff getting dug up from time to time, because that's kind of just what happens. I've heard people put, like, if you have a smaller space, you can put little things in there to deter them from wanting to dig. But in general, my approach is plant enough that if you lose a little bit, it's okay. And I know that's not an option for everybody, but that's just generally how I handle it. I try not to get too uptight about a few plants getting damaged. So I was going to look at more of these varieties. I've got some eggplant varieties for us to look at. So I have, these are 2 old packets of my 2 favorite eggplant varieties that I've ever had. The Nagasaki Long and the Antigua. They're both such delicate skinned eggplants and really creamy. And I didn't know how good I had it with these until I started growing other stuff. And I'm like, oh, these are actually excellent. But I do have a couple other varieties here. I have some seeds that I tried saving. I also have Ping Tung Long. This one, it's from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, which you'll see a lot of my seeds are from. And that is because they carry varieties that are adapted to climates like mine, which is always what I recommend for you guys when you're buying seeds, is to look for stuff that is well adapted to your area, and do that by looking at companies that are more local to you. Like big companies, a lot of times the seeds you get from them, like I'm in South Carolina, and I don't necessarily want to be buying seeds that are grown in Montana, because that's just not the right climate for my seeds to be acclimated to. I also have from So True Seed this Listada de Ganita. It is a Spanish variety of eggplant, and we'll see if that does really well. It's also supposed to also be really, really tender skinned. Here's my basils. I knew they were in here. They were just hiding. Where is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got my, here, let's move these out of the way. I've got my Tulsi, aka holy basil. This also reseeds itself really, really well. Ordering from Baker Creek, yeah. So I have ordered from Baker Creek in the past, obviously. I've kind of stopped doing that just because a lot of these varieties are not well adapted for my area. and they are a really big company. I've heard, some farmers feel like they're not being treated fairly by them as this bigger company. And, I don't really know what's happening, but I do know that there are other companies that are more local to me that are going to probably give me a more well-adapted product. So all of these seed packets that you see are really old. I haven't bought from them in a while. But I do still have the Emily basil, the cinnamon basil, and the dark purple opal basil. And I'll just keep using these packets until they run out. This is like their 5th year that I've been planting out of these. And most of the rest of this stuff is just kind of random stuff that I pulled out, and a lot of it is also fall stuff. But yeah, do I have any more last minute questions from you guys? Also, I want to say thank you to you guys for being here on the live stream and not leaving me out here all alone. It's been really nice to have company for the last couple of hours. Gosh, my voice really is dry. What do you guys think of the sticker method? I'm super happy with how colorful it is. All right, if we've got no more questions, I think I'm going to go ahead and log off. Thanks, Miss Sharon. Again, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for being some of my top supporters. It really does mean a lot to me, and I will be seeing you guys in the next video. And if you check out the next garden tour coming up on Wednesday, you'll get to see all the behind the scenes of how I set all of this up. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. The stickers look amazing. Thank you, Crystal. I just got all of these off of Amazon. It came in a big pack of different colors. Alrighty. Thank you guys again. I'm going to go ahead and log off. Happy gardening.